Welcome to class. This is topic 2, where we're looking at Keynesian Economics. Keynesian Economics developed against the background of the World Depression of the 1930s. During that time, there was a slump in economic activity, especially in the developed world, the US and Europe. And this sharp decline in economic activity was accompanied by very high level of unemployment. So there were a lot of discussion among economists as to how to solve the problem, that is the economic problem at the time. Now, economic thinking at the time that believes in leaving everything to market forces to resolve is known as classical macroeconomics. So classical macroeconomics believe that market forces can adjust, and that adjustment process can restore the economy to its long run path. In economics, one of the causes of unemployment is as a result of a high wage rate. So if you want to solve unemployment, what you have to do is to lower the wage rate. As I said earlier, during the Great Depression, the level of economic activity in the developed world has declined sharply, and that decline in economic activity resulted in mass unemployment. And in the US, for instance, unemployment rose from 3.2% to in 1929 to 25.2% in 1933. And you can see how unemployment rose very sharply within a short period of time. So there was debate among policymakers as to how to solve this problem. And according to the classical economics, the unemployment is as a result of high money wages. So to solve this problem, money wages must be reduced, and wages were actually cut with the hope that it will solve the unemployment problem. But it was unable to resolve the low level of economic activity and its consequent unemployment. So, for instance, in the Great Britain, the unemployment led to a debate among economists and policymakers over the causes of the unemployment. There was this economist called John Maynard Keynes. John Maynard Keynes. He was a prominent participant in these debates, which resulted in a revision or revolution against the existing classical theory of macroeconomics and the economic ideas propounded by John Maynard Keynes in response to the Great Depression. That is, Keynes' ideas as to how the problem created during the Great Depression can be solved is what we are referring to as Keynesian Economics. According to Keynes, the high unemployment was the result of a deficiency in aggregate demand. That is, total spending on goods and services in the economy was low, and that was the reason why the level of economic activity was also low. Therefore, the solution to the problem is to increase aggregate demand. John Maynard Keynes particularly identified inadequate investment demand as a source of the low level of aggregate demand. He believes that the investing community can just behave strangely sometimes by reducing investment spending drastically, and that will in effect lower total aggregate demand and for that matter the level of economic activity. So John Menachin's argument is that if private investment spending can drop, which could lower total aggregate demand, then government can use its purchasing power, that's through fiscal policy, to increase expenditure so that it can offset the inadequate investment demand by the private sector. So John Menachin's favor activist policies, that is, the government can use its spending as a way to stimulate the economy. Generally, that is all the Keynesian economics is all about. So John Menachin argues that such government expenditures will stimulate outputs and employment both directly and indirectly. The logic is that if government decides to undertake a project and spends some amount of money, that money will be received by people as income. As the people who receive this money as income spend, they tend to create income for others, and those others will also spend, further creating income for others. So the process will continue that way in the economy. So by the time the money gets to its lowest level, because of the issue of savings, when people earn money, they will not spend everything. They'll spend some and keep some. So when it moves from one person to another, they'll keep some and spend some. So by the time it goes through the economy, a lot of economic activity, employment, and income would have been generated. That is what we call the multiplier effect. Because one time payment by the government can increase national income by an amount higher than the initial expenditure, because series of incomes are going to be generated in the economy. So in summary, what Keynesian economics is saying is that what determines GDP is aggregate expenditure. As we saw in one of the approaches to measuring national income. What John Menachin is saying is that what determines the level of GDP is total spending in the economy. And if the private investment spending is low, the government can offset that by using its expansionary fiscal policy. So Y, which is national income, is equal to E, which is aggregate expenditure. When Y is exactly equal to, that is when national output is exactly equal to national income. When national income or output is exactly equal to total expenditure, then the national income that produces result is known as equilibrium national income. Equilibrium national income. So we are going to do some small calculations in determining this equilibrium national income. There are various levels at which we can do this, but we'll start with the simplest economy. That is, we are going to see how equilibrium national income is determined in a closed economy with no public sector. When we say a country's economy is closed, what it simply means is that that economy is not open to international trade. You don't buy from outside your country and you don't also sell to those outside your country. So in equilibrium, Y should be equal to E, and E refers to aggregate expenditure or aggregate demand. So what are the components of aggregate demand? We have personal consumption spending and private investment spending. Somebody will ask why we have studied how to determine GDP using expenditure approach. So why are we worrying ourselves again in this topic? The issue over here is that the some components of GDP, like personal consumption spending, that is how much we spend as individuals in an economy, depends on the income itself, the Y that we are trying to determine. So it's like Y depends on E, and E also depends on Y. So in that case, though E has components like C plus I, it is not just enough to just say Y is equal to C plus I, whereby you add total spending made by people in the economy, that's private spending by people, and private investment spending by businesses, to say that Y is equal to E, because Y depends on E, and E also depends on Y. We'll see that later. So it becomes something like if you really want to solve for Y, it is not as simple as we saw in the expenditure approach to measuring GDP. So let's look at the components of aggregate demand. The components are two in this simple economy, where we have personal consumption spending and the private investment spending. The personal consumption spending has to do with you and I, we the consumers who go to the market to spend part of our income to buy. How much we spend as individuals depends on our income, how much we earn. And if you take the economy as a whole, how much consumers spend out of their income should depend on the GDP. That is why you can see that here consumer spending, which is C, depends on output, which is Y. And we can also see that Y also depends on C plus I, or C or Y being equal to what? E. So there is a kind of simultaneity here. The Y depends on consumption, and consumption also depends on what? Income. We are saying that income is made up of consumption plus investment in this simple economy. But consumption too depends on what? Income. That one is common knowledge. How much you spend depends on the income you earn. And if you take the economy as a whole, how much we spend depends on how much the economy generates. See, our expenditure depends, it is the proportion of our income that we spend. So, in this simple economy, John Maynard Keynes believes that consumer spending, that is the expenditure we make on buying goods, in the economy as a whole, is a function of personal income. Why? So, since personal incomes constitute, if you sum all the personal incomes, then you arrive at the national income. So, the total consumer spending in the economy as a whole will be a function of total income or GDP. Why? John Monakin believes that the the Y. John Monakin believes that consumption is a function of income, which assumes this linear form: C is equal to A plus BY, just like the linear function of Y is equal to A plus BX, or that kind of thing. So the A is called autonomous consumption, and the B is called marginal propensity to consume. The A is positive, meaning even if you earn zero income, you still spend. And the B lies between 0 and 1, suggesting that consumers don't spend all their income on buying goods. They spend a fraction, and that fraction is known as marginal propensity to consume. It is that change in C over change in Y, which will give you the B. So that is what we call marginal propensity to consume. And we can show the consumption function graphically as this. So if you take individual consumers, you sum their total autonomous consumption, then you have the sum of AI. Then the B, we cannot sum it, we can only find the average, so that we can say on the average individuals spend, let's say, 50% of their income. And if on the average people spend 50% of their income on consumption, then the economy as a whole, we can say that individuals spend 50% of their income on consumption. So this is how to give us the aggregate consumption function when you sum all the individuals in the economy. So if you sum all these things, you have a function like this: C is equal to sum of C is equal to sum into bracket AI plus B yi. So this is for the individual. So you sum it over the entire economy, we have a function like this. Now there are two components or two major economic actors in that simple economy, which is households, which are the consumers, then firms, the businesses that organize production. So as individuals make personal expenditure, businesses also make investment spending. They buy raw materials, they invest in capital in order to produce. So we have a private investment spending. In the case of consumer spending, which depends on income, private investment spending doesn't depend on income. It's autonomous. It doesn't depend on national income. So if you want to draw a graph of private investment spending as a function of national income, you realize that it is independent of it. It is just a fixed amount. No, meaning at various levels of national income, private investments wouldn't change. Or that is, national income doesn't affect private investment spending. Now we have the necessary ingredients to determine equilibrium national income. As I've said earlier, when we were looking at finding GDP using income expenditure approach, we just say y is equal to c plus i plus c plus I, y is equal to c plus I plus g plus x minus m. That is open economy. But here we are talking about, in this case, we are only talking about closed economy. So without public sector, meaning there is no government involvement in the economy and there is no international trade. So we are only limited to the C plus the I portion of that equation. As I said, the C depends on the Y, while the Y is also a function of C. So there's some kind of simultaneity over there. As you can see from this implies that Y is equal to C plus I. So see, Y is a function of C. But C also is equal to A plus BY. So the C is also a function of Y. So in that case, we cannot just simply sum C plus I to get Y. We need to, there is a problem of indigeneity there. So we need to solve for the Y, because if you for the C is a function of Y. So for us to solve for Y, if we have the initial equation which is saying that income or GDP is equal to C plus I, but we have defined the C as A plus BY, where the A is autonomous spending and the B is marginal propensity to consume and the Y is GDP or national income. The I there is the private investment spending, which is constant. So if you substitute all this into the Y equation, we'll have Y is equal to A plus BY plus I naught. And when we can solve for Y, which will give us A plus I naught over 1 minus B. This is just a simple expression that you do substitution. You move the Y to the left side and you factor out the Y. So Y into bracket 1 minus B. Then you divide both sides by 1 minus B to get A plus I naught over 1 minus B. This last equation can be written as Y is equal to 1 over 1 minus B all into bracket A plus I. The expression 1 over 1 minus B is called simple investment multiplier. It is just the change in Y as a result of a change in I. If you have some little knowledge in calculus, you realize that the 1 over 1 minus B is just the Y, the I. So this expression, the multiplier, measures the extent to which equilibrium income will change if autonomous expenditure changes by 1 unit in the same direction. Meaning, if investment increases by 1 series, equivalent national income will also increase by 1 over 1 minus B. If it decreases, it will also decrease. If investment decreases, equivalent national income will also decrease by 1 over 1 minus B. We know that in every country's economy, incomes don't remain constant. So as the determinants of income changes, we expect equivalent national income also to change. For instance, if there is an increase in investment spending in that economy, we expect it to affect equivalent national income. When there is an increase in autonomous consumption spending, we expect that also to increase or change the equivalent national income. So how do we measure this change? The multiplier is the simplest way of measuring the effect of these autonomous changes on the equivalent national income. So we can measure this quantitatively. For instance, if you take the equivalent national income, which is Y is equal to 1 over 1 minus B times A plus I, and you differentiate this function with respect to investment, you have the 1 over 1 minus B, which is the multiplier. And if you make Y, changing Y the subject, that is how much equivalent national income will change when investment changes. You have the last equation there, which is change in y is equal to, or you see that symbol simply means change, or delta y. So delta y is equal to 1 over 1 minus b. The 1 minus b, the 1 over 1 minus b is the multiplier. So the multiplier times change in I. Meaning what this simply means is that if businesses do one-time investment in the economy, that investment creates income for somebody. That person will also save something out of that income and spend the rest of the money. So that person's expenditure becomes an income to somebody. That person will also spend. So it continues that way in the economy. So at the end of the day, if you want to find the total effect on the economy, then you multiply the initial investment change by the multiplier, so that you can see how the equilibrium national income change from one level to another. So this is what we have here. Sometimes we also want to find out how much should investment change for equilibrium income to move from one level to another. What we saw earlier is, should investment change by so and so amount, by how much will equilibrium national income change from one point to another. So we can also ask the question differently. If you want to move equilibrium national income from one level to another, by how much should investment change? So taking the same equilibrium national income, y is equal to 1 over 1 minus b times into brackets a plus I. If we differentiate that function with respect to investment, we have the multiplier on the right. Now, if you make change in I, the investment, as a subject, then you have that last expression which says delta I is equal to 1 minus b all into brackets multiplied by delta y. The delta y simply refers to the change in equilibrium national income from one level to another, as we define above. So let's say you are at the equilibrium level of income y1 and you are moving to equilibrium level of income y2. The difference between that y2 minus y1 is the change in y, or delta y. So when we solve it this way, that is the result we will get. This is a trial example that you can solve for. So I'll give it to you as an assignment, not for submission, but go and try this question and solve it among yourselves. This topic can go beyond what we have just seen. What we have just seen is the simplest case of all. We can extend this model to include the public sector. That is, when the government comes into the picture. Because in every economy, we know the role government plays. So when the government comes in the economy, the government needs money. So the government takes taxes from the people. And the government also makes expenditure. The government employs people, the government buy raw materials, the government buy finished products. So the government takes money from people and spend on the people. So the picture changes. Then we can even move beyond that one and incorporate international trade. That is, if the country buys from outside and also sells to the outsiders, we can have those complicated issues. But for now, we'll only look at the simplest case. If there is time, we'll later in course of the the semester, we'll add the government sector to it, but we will not attempt the will not attempt adding the external sector where the economy is open. We will not do that because it becomes more complicated and time consuming as we go into that area. So with this, I will bring this topic to an end. And if there is time, in course of the semester, we can look at the other side or other components which incorporate the government sector. Thank you and see you later. Bye.